not the way. And let's just start at quarterback. He was known for being the quarterback guy. And recently, the quarterback's just in flux. There's too many question marks with all of that. And way too much talent around him. Way too much. Hit us up with your thoughts.
It's a mess.
And by the way, we'll hit back on this and we'll tie it into LSU. That's coming up later in the show. In about 15 minutes, Frank Isola will join us when we come back. The catch, not just of the season, one of the greatest catches we've ever witnessed as football fans happened yesterday. On fourth down, when the Vikings needed it, they threw it up to the guy with the selection for trading Stephon Diggs. The Vikings went to Justin Jefferson, and he came down with an incredible catch. Chad and I will compare it to some of the best catches we've ever seen. That's next on OutKick 360.
Was there a moment that you always look back to from Black Hawk Down and you said to yourself in that moment, I am not making it out? Like, I will not survive today because of this one thing.
It was kind of the entire day, the entire night. There was a portion of time, I think, in the middle of the night where things kind of calmed down and it wasn't as chaotic, and we were just kind of sitting waiting for guys in helicopters to get extricated and things like that. And it wasn't until the sun started to kind of peak back up where you're like, oh, this is going to turn back on again. But for the initial assault and 2 or 3 times that I went out into the city, it was just, I don't think any of us are going to make it out alive. And so every time we would kind of get back and be secure and all right, get more ammo, and we're going back out to try and find this other crash site. And I didn't think that it was happening for any of us. I kind of came to peace. I was just telling my son about this actually the other day, but I kind of came to peace with, okay, if I get hit in the chest, like I've got a plate carrier, hopefully that stops it. If I get hit in the arms or the legs, chances are I'll live. And if I get hit anywhere else, it's probably going to be pretty quick and traumatic and over. So I hope that I remember thinking specifically in the middle of the afternoon, I hope that I can just like look at the blue sky and have something peaceful to look at, not this whole, what I'm looking at in front of me. I hope that's not my last moments. And that kind of gave me a little bit of peace.
This one, I picked it because the caption's just frankly funny. And it's also geotagged your mom's house. It says balls deep, as we used to say, long before it was a popular term. The meaning to us referred to how far into bad guy territory we were. These are a few picks from that day and also a pic of us getting ready to go. We lost a mate on this day, Andy Fernandez. Although he was brand new to the unit, he had just been assigned, he left his mark, and will forever be etched into historic endeavors. R.I.P. Andy. So I know you probably can't get into specifics. The caption's hilarious, the top half of it anyways. But Are you able to say anything about what this Instagram post is in relation to?
That was a post gunfight. I think it's been talked about in some book, someplace. So I don't read any military history stuff. So I don't know. People will send me things sometimes where like, oh, this must be from this book that so-and-so wrote about. Like, I don't know. It was kind of post gunfight. We were outnumbered and surrounded by, 130, 150 dudes, and had, at least beat everybody back enough that, that was kind of that moment when that picture was taken. So we didn't necessarily know at the time, like, it was any gunfight is a scary moment, and, you don't really necessarily know the outcome. But it was almost, for me and where I was, it was almost a fun gunfight. Like, they couldn't hit me where I was, and they couldn't hit my group where we were based on the terrain. And so we were almost kind of laughing, running back and forth, shooting at these guys over here, go grab some more ammo, go shoot at these guys over here. And so it wasn't, a terrifying moment. it turned into not to be a terrifying moment. But then we started hearing radio calls, hey, we got some people hit and injured, and okay, well, now this is a serious thing. It's not a funny thing anymore. And if anything, the post kind of reflects that, where,
Right.
Initially, hey, haha, fun. This was, a good day. And then, somebody paid the ultimate price that day. And but that's about as much as I can say.
Frank Isola will join us in roughly 10 minutes. SiriusXM NBA host and ESPN contributor. Looking forward to that. Plus, we'll recap Week 10 across the NFL. That's in 30 minutes. Chad, a part of this, in what was a crazy week, is the catch by Justin Jefferson. And it's rare that a single play that is that great is overshadowed by the game. But I do think that has happened with how the game played out after that, with the Vikings pulling out the win in overtime. We must discuss this one-handed falling backwards into coverage catch that we have a photo of. But one-handed, with Cam Lewis coming over the top here, with two hands on the ball and with the leverage. I think that's the key for me. Lewis has the leverage to pull this ball in. And for just a half second, he does. And then Jefferson comes down with it on 4th and 18 to keep the drive alive and keep the Vikings alive in this game in their comeback. This is unbelievable. And I thought we would get tired of seeing it. I haven't seen it enough.
The most likely scenario on that play is clearly an interception.
Yes.
The second most likely is the ball's just broken up because you got a hand in the middle of two hands over the ball, and he's trying to come down with it. So the ball's just incomplete. The reception by Justin Jefferson is so unlikely. I mean, if you did all the studies of physics and man and laws of gravity and everything, the percentage chance of that happening is so minute, it blows my mind that a man can have a lever of a hand and arm like that and rip the ball from another professional athlete that's got two hands on it and put it perfectly into their torso.
Yep.
As they're falling to the ground and come up with the catch. Was it Joe Davis, I think, was on the call of that game for Fox, maybe?
Sounds right.
He was so quick to know what happened on that. Watching it, when you go back and watch the actual live call, I'm thinking it would have taken me a second to grasp that he had the ball and it was a reception.
From a skill set.
Because it looked chaotic when he hit the ground, and then he's rolling over with the ball. I'm thinking, he's got the ball? I mean, he was quick to diagnose what had happened.
2-minute drill. They're down in this game. 4th and 18. 1 timeout left. Cousins goes to his guy, right? And this, he comes down with it. With skill set wise, it's one of the best catches we've ever seen. And there's some recency bias here where, it's the best catch ever. I don't know. I just know we won't see anything like it again this season. And it came from a player that's about to take over the league as the best dude. And it came on a day where on the opposite sideline is the player that was traded to get the pick where they selected Justin Jefferson, Minnesota at 8-1. Frank Isola joins us to kick off hour number 2. Then we'll react to all of the NFL Week 10 finals on OutKick 360.
College football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking there's going to be practice the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point. It felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Glad you're with us. Just like that, hour number 2 of the program is here.
That.
That's right. We've got Monday Night Football tonight. Eagles back at it. I think
it's going to be a really close game.
Coming off their bye week, too, and they're returning, playing on a Monday, and then turning around, they'll head to Indy after tonight. They're in Philly.
I'm expecting a close football game tonight.
We'll give our picks on that later and preview the matchup. Also, we will review all of Week 10. That's coming up in about 20 minutes. Big takeaways from the SEC. LSU, they get it done against Arkansas 13-10. And based on results, Alabama hanging on against Ole Miss. That was a good game. Alabama's got their faults. They've had their issues dating back to last year where it just did not feel like the same Crimson Tide team, but they kept winning. And this year, they're living and dying on the edge of a cliff weekly. So far, they've lost 2, of course, but they hung on and did just enough, even though the entire game felt uncomfortable offensively. That was a battle for them against Ole Miss.
It was a game where you can really tell how much it means to Lane Kiffin to eventually beat Nick Saban. He's not an overly emotional guy. There were a lot of emotions in that game for Lane Kiffin going up against his former boss. Very important game for Alabama to get back on track. There's been all this talk about, is Nick Saban losing it? I think that's ridiculous. But I think some of the warranted things to talk about with Bama were, okay, here's a team now that's not going to play in the college football playoff for the first time ever. So what is the real motivation? Because you go to Alabama, the expectation is you're going to be playing for a championship and you're at least going to be in that Final Four playoff every year. So when you lose that opportunity, what is it like? That sounds ridiculous to every other team in America for the most part, but that's reality at Bama. And I thought they played like a very motivated team. They have their faults. They don't have the weapons on the outside they've been accustomed to having in the last few years. Bryce Young is special. There's no denying that. But Hutton, I thought a really gutsy win for Alabama on the road in that game.
Well, and that was the 11th fewest yards in a conference game for them since 2010. That's why I say it was just a grind. And it's felt that way for a while with the penalties and everything else going on. But, Chad, we didn't see the same aggressive mentality from Kiffin, but it did come down to fourth down. They were 0 for 3 on fourth down. They had 400 yards of total offense in this game and 0 for 2 on their final 2 series on fourth down. When the ball left the hand on that final play, I thought it was put in a perfect spot based on the camera angle. I thought he was going to catch it.
Judkins is special, by the way. That's one big takeaway from that game.
Yes.
25 for 135, over 5-yard average against Alabama.
I won't say dominant by a team, but I mean, you look up the scoreboard, and for it to be that close at halftime, but feel like Ole Miss was dominating the lines, they were getting it done. That had to be deflating going into the locker room.
Jahmyr Gibbs was kind of odd. 6 carries for 3 yards and then didn't play for 2.5 quarters, right? I mean, he played into the second quarter, and he didn't play again the whole second half. So something's definitely up. Jason McClellan was big for Alabama. Nice win for Alabama. That's one, too. We talk about college football playoff hopefuls.
Yep.
That was another big one, along with those 2 big Pac-12 losses from Oregon and UCLA. UCLA losing to Arizona, by the way, was unexpected. But Ole Miss losing is one thing you needed to happen if you're one of those teams trying to get that last college football playoff spot.
So I'm watching Ole Miss Bama, and while I like Kiffin, I'm on board the Lane train here. I wanted to see him get over the Saban hump. What do you think he wants to do after the season? Because last year he's flirting with whoever. We know Miami was a program that he wanted to be included in, but wasn't. Chad, do you think 4 months from now, Lane Kiffin is the head coach at Ole Miss? Because what he's done this year and watching that team, he can reload again. But I think in that situation, there's no building from the ground up there anymore, right? I think he has to do this every single year, and by doing so, he's going to lose out on some coaches that are going to depart for head coaching jobs, whatever it might be, and he's going to reload, and then those guys leave a year later because they're putting up offensive numbers. They're going to get the quarterback transfers in, and those guys are going to put up numbers. But do you think Ole Miss is the spot for Kiffin, given the fact that NIL is playing a major role in all this, and he did it this year, but you have to sustain that now for a program that isn't known for name, image, likeness, at least not yet?
Well, they're also not known for winning. They've won under Lane Kiffin, but I mean it's Ole Miss as the only team outside of A&M who hasn't been in the conference that long in the SEC West who's never been to Atlanta, and you've got Kentucky and Vanderbilt from the East who's never been. I think a big part of this is, you mentioned it, but losing coordinators. DJ Durkin, he got outbid by A&M. DJ Durkin leaves, his defensive coordinator from a year ago. Got a questionable track record as a head coach and someone over a program, but a great defensive mind and good defensive coordinator. Jeff Lebby, we know how talented he is as an offensive play caller. He leaves for Oklahoma. If Lane Kiffin is getting the sense that he's going to lose other assistant coaches to programs that may spend a little bit more money than Ole Miss, then I think he's going to want to bolt. But I look around also, Hutton, and think, why? You know, you look at the outcomes right now at Ole Miss. They are playing toe-to-toe with Bama. They have 2 losses right now in a very tough SEC, and that's it. He's won big at Ole Miss. He doesn't have to leave to have success. But if the ultimate goal is, I just want to be somewhere where everywhere feels like a lateral move, right? If someone leaves, it's because a family connection somewhere else, or where they went to school, or it's not going to be seen as, well, you leave Ole Miss and go to Oklahoma. That's an obvious step up. That somewhere is probably Auburn. It's a program that's won a national championship pretty recently. It's one that has played for a national championship very recently. And it's one where you can win and win at the highest level.
Yes.
So when I played college football matchmaker, I had Auburn hiring Lane Kiffin for that reason, because it makes so much sense. He knows the area. He can recruit in the South. He's going to continue to be a juggernaut with the transfer portal and reshaping his roster every year. Auburn makes a lot of sense if he wants to leave. If he's okay at Ole Miss, stay at Ole Miss, because they're winning at a high clip.
And I think Auburn makes the most sense because of that. Like, it's same division. You know you can compete. You know you can recruit against those. Outside of that, I think there is some relevance to Kiffin in the SEC, right? Like, we know there's an ego factor with all of it. Again, I'm on board here. I just don't know if Ole Miss is going to pony up and do that. Like, it's kind of like, will Ole Miss treat Kiffin the way Kentucky treats Mark Stoops? I don't think they will. And it's just a vibe. Like, it's just...
They should.
But are they going, like... They're going to that level, though?
Well, if you want to... So, we've seen... I mean, you can transform a program. It's hard. It doesn't happen often. But you can transform the vibe of a program and turn it into something that it hasn't been before. History is not the only indicator of future success, but it is a big indicator of future success. Example, Baylor. Art Briles transformed Baylor from a national laughingstock of a program that was the Vanderbilt of the Southwest Conference and later the Big 12 into a national contender every year with that offense. Now, they had scandal. They had a huge issue there, and they had to blow things up. And guess what happened? They hired Matt Rule, and he kept the thing rolling.
Yeah.
And they wanted a high clip. Dave Aranda has continued to win at Baylor. They have not slowed down at Baylor to any great extent, so that program has transformed. If you're Ole Miss, are you looking around and saying, we are successful right now only because Lane Kiffin, or has Lane Kiffin gotten Ole Miss to a level with Hugh Freeze and his success factored in also, and he had great success at Ole Miss also? Is this now a program that can afford to lose Lane Kiffin, and let's go hire the next young coach, and we can keep things successful at Ole Miss? Maybe it is. Maybe they've arrived at that point. I'm not so sure. But if you're going to invest heavily in a coach, I don't know what all is going on in the background, don't know if he's been a malcontent, don't know if he's truly happy there, but he's won there. If you're going to invest in a coach, why not Lane Kiffin? If you're Ole Miss, similar to the way Kentucky has, like you said, with Mark Stoops.
But the difference,
I think it's a great comparison.
Well, from the university standpoint, the individuals, though, are vastly different. Mark Stoops, he's not flirting with other jobs on an annual basis, right? He's not commenting on the Auburn opening.
And that's Lane Kiffin's personality.
I know.
It's hard to know what's real and what isn't with him.
But you don't
Even when we talk about we don't know if he's totally happy at Ole Miss, well, how much of that is just him trolling? I don't know. I get a sense it's real.
Oh, I think we know he wanted the Miami
wants to look
gig.
around. Yes.
That fits him.
Right.
Is there always going to be the Miami job every year that he like? Are there other jobs where he's the Lincoln Riley for Ole Miss that bolts randomly for an opening where, I mean, he gets mentioned everywhere, but that's kind of my point here. Like, we can mention Stoops at Nebraska, and it makes a ton of sense, but there's also a hesitation that Stoops would even leave Kentucky. Like, if a job makes sense for Kiffin, there's no hesitation no matter where he is, unless it's USC. Chad, there's no hesitation that he would leave for that job if it makes sense. Because I think it's just, he hops around a bit, and I think he gets antsy and not bored, but I guess kinda. I'm intrigued. This offseason is going to tell us a lot. The next 2 months will tell us a lot about him because as more and more jobs open up, and especially Auburn, but there is a trickle-down effect here. Do we hear his name a lot or no? And if we don't, I think that's a great sign for the Rebels program that can reload again and win at another high clip.
I think part of it is he does get bored. He is a single guy now. I don't think he has a lot tying him to Oxford if he wanted to bolt and go somewhere else.
And he's calmed down some in that regard.
And yeah, and I'm not saying that from a Playboy mentality, just that he's got no real roots there,
right?
Where he has to stay for kids' schooling or whatever it may be. He does have kids, but they're back and forth. I know. Maybe he's just ready for not even the next challenge. Just what level can I rise to elsewhere? It's not. And here's the best way I can say it, Hutton. With Lane Kiffin, I feel like it's not him being a malcontent. It's wanderlust. It's always looking at, is it going to be better on the other side? Well, is there another program where I can win the ultimate prize if I feel like I'm not doing that here?
But also, like, keep in mind, there is even at the top programs, like even if you're Auburn, if you're new AD coming in, you're trying to establish like your path to prominence again. In the back of my mind, I would have to be thinking, and I know ADs and donors, boosters don't think like this because they do it on an annual basis. They pay millions for guys to fail. But I would be thinking like, okay, 3 years from now, am I doing the search again? And it has nothing to do with failure? The answer with him is probably yes. So, and even if you don't believe there's a college program, if he's that good, the NFL is going to call on him again. And he'll go, there's always the question mark, and that's my only hesitation with it. And I understand the hesitation, and I also understand the intrigue and the shine, right? The glimmer of hope that here comes some recognition along with wins and some energy, a boost. And he'll bring you that. That's why it just depends on the program. Does Auburn need that, or do they need a guy that's coming in to be Gus Malzahn again? Because Gus Malzahn also wanted a very high clip.
I think they need both. I really think this is a time where they need a little bit of both. They need that shine, and they need someone who is a program builder, who's an adult, who's going to come in and run things the way they need it run. Now, I think Lane Kiffin could be that guy. I mean, take the social media persona aside, he can run a program.
But that fits. I mean, that
He's
works.
shown it. I think it's the perfect fit for Auburn right now. Kentucky's an interesting case study. They lose to Vanderbilt this weekend. And suddenly all that talk about being second best in the East and a better program than Tennessee and all these things has been washed away. And it's a weird spot for Mark Stoops, who got fiery about the basketball coach calling them a basketball school before the season. And Kentucky has fallen on their face this year with a possible first-round NFL quarterback. And the offense is bad. Does this lead to Mark Stoops being more likely to stay at Kentucky because he's not going to have the same level of opportunity because of this season, and it's almost a good thing for Kentucky fans that you don't have to worry about it? Or does this ultimately lead to Mark Stoops saying, this is a basketball school? It is what it is. I'm never going to win a title. I'm never going to win an SEC East championship here. I'm never going to play in Atlanta.
I don't think
So it's time to move on somewhere else.
It's hard to think that 1 4-month stretch would change his sentiment on the basketball. He knows it's a basketball school, right? But I think he was gaining more traction than what people internally were giving him credit for. And whenever he started taking some money away and he got the shiny new, what was it, $25 million practice facility, the tide was turning a bit. And not all the way. I mean, it's still a basketball school, but it was intriguing to see where he had gained enough momentum to where he could say that, right, and challenge the great John Calipari. And now you look at the scoreboard, you see Clark Lee and everyone, emotional after their first SEC win. We're going to get into this because there's a big question to ponder here for me, and we'll do this.
Well, what's your goal? Just ending this with Mark Stoops quickly. What's your ultimate goal as a coach? Is it stability? Is it a lifetime contract? Is it money? Is it not having to look over your shoulder? Or is it availability of a championship?
It's different
because
now.
Even with Nebraska's problems, I believe the opportunity to play for a championship is much greater in the Big Ten at Nebraska than Kentucky in the SEC.
It depends on, are you factoring in USC, UCLA, no divisions? We're having a 12-team playoff here. I mean, last year they're in Kentucky.
Yeah.
I mean, so I think he knows.
And Kentucky's a better recruiting area than Nebraska.
I think moving forward, I think he knows if he can get back to that he can play for a title, in a 12-team playoff. It's 6 here, half dozen the other for me, Chad, on that. I would stay at Kentucky if I'm him because he already has the support of the athletic program that's going to step up and pony up and pay him when there is success.
Yeah, it's not about
any threat of him leaving.
There's no question about his stability there and his contract and everything else. The question I would have to ask if I'm Mark Stoops is 10 wins and an Outback Bowl the ceiling at Kentucky? If that's the case and I want to win a national championship before I'm done coaching, then you leave. You leave for Auburn. You leave for Nebraska. You leave for somewhere else where that can happen.
Yeah, and he's a good name to mention.
If your answer is yes, and your answer may be no, we could have won we could win an SEC title here. We're going to do it. Then you stay. Yeah, I think that's really it's that simple.
Yes, and you could say the same about Ole Miss, right? Like ceiling.
The perfect mirror of East and West with Kentucky and Ole Miss in their situations. I agree.
Coming up, though, who has lost the shine the most this season, just as a football fan? Kentucky or Arkansas? Because I think there are also comparisons to be made there on preseason expectation versus results, even when the quarterback's healthy and playing. We'll chime in there. We'll discuss that. That's in hour number 3 when we come back to the NFL. Week 10 reaction. We will go from Vegas to Lambeau, here in Nashville, what the Dolphins are doing, and the Vikings-Bills, and how that has really sent the AFC East and the AFC playoffs right now in complete turmoil based on the way it looked a week ago as we sat here. That's all coming up on OutKick 360.
Was there a moment that you always look back to from Black Hawk Down and you said to yourself in that moment, I am not making it out? Like, I will not survive today because of this one thing.
It was kind of the entire day, the entire night. There was a portion of time, I think, in the middle of the night where things kind of calmed down and it wasn't as chaotic, and we were just kind of sitting waiting for guys in helicopters to get extricated and things like that, and it wasn't until the sun started to kind of peak back up where you're like, oh, this is going to turn back on again. But for the initial assault and 2 or 3 times that I went out into the city, it was just I don't think any of us are going to make it out alive. And so every time we would kind of get back and be secure and all right, get more ammo. And we're going back out to try and find this other crash site. And I didn't think that it was happening for any of us. I kind of came to peace. I was just telling my son about this actually the other day, but I kind of came to peace with, okay, if I get hit in the chest, like I've got a plate carrier, hopefully that stops it. If I get hit in the arms or the legs, chances are I'll live. And if I get hit anywhere else, it's probably going to be pretty quick and traumatic and over. So I hope that I remember thinking specifically in the middle of the afternoon, I hope that I can just like look at the blue sky and have something peaceful to look at, not this whole, what I'm looking at in front of me. I hope that's not my last moments. And that kind of gave me a little bit of peace.
This one, I picked it because the caption's just frankly funny. And it's also geotagged your mom's house. It says balls deep, as we used to say, long before it was a popular term. The meaning to us referred to how far into bad guy territory we were. These are a few picks from that day and also a pick of us getting ready to go. We lost a mate on this day, Andy Fernandez. Although he was brand new to the unit, he had just been assigned, he left his mark, and will forever be etched into historic endeavors. R.I.P. Andy. So I know you probably can't get into specifics. The caption's hilarious, the top half of it anyways. But Are you able to say anything about what this Instagram post is in relation to?
That was post gunfight. I think it's been talked about in some book, someplace. So I don't read any military history stuff. So I don't know. People will send me things sometimes where like, oh, this must be from this book that so-and-so wrote about. Like, I don't know. It was kind of post gunfight. We were outnumbered and surrounded by, 130, 150 dudes, and had, at least beat everybody back enough that, that was kind of that moment when that picture was taken. So we didn't necessarily know at the time, like it was any gunfight is a scary moment, and, you don't really necessarily know the outcome. But it was almost, for me and where I was, it was almost a fun gunfight. Like they couldn't hit me where I was, and they couldn't hit my group where we were based on the terrain. And so we were almost kind of laughing, running back and forth, shooting at these guys over here, go grab some more ammo, go shoot at these guys over here. And so it wasn't, a terrifying moment. It turned into not to be a terrifying moment. But then we started hearing radio calls, hey, we got some people hit and injured, and okay, well, now this is a serious thing. It's not a funny thing anymore. And if anything, the post kind of reflects that, where, initially, hey, haha, fun. This was, a good day. And then, somebody paid the ultimate price that day. And but that's about as much as I can say.
Vikings are now 8-1, and their games, Chad, as we welcome you back to OutKick 360. Vikings beating the Bills. Here are the final scores of their 8 wins. 23-7. That was the Green Bay game. And here are the other 7. 28-24, 28-25, 29-22, 24-16, 34-26, 20-17, 33-30. 7 one-possession wins for the Minnesota Vikings. At some point, there's only a handful of teams that I think are given the elite status. At some point, you've got to put them for this year in that conversation, and I think they earned it yesterday based on the way they came back and won that game down 17 in the third.
They absolutely earned it. I mean, they're an elite team in the NFL this year. I don't think there's any denying that. They're 8-1, and now coming up for them, they get the Cowboys at home, the Patriots at home, the Jets at home. So 3 straight games in Minneapolis. Then they go to Detroit. They've got the Colts at home, the Giants at home, and then they finish out the season in Green Bay and in Chicago. It's a pretty favorable schedule the rest of the way for an 8-1 team.
It looks a lot like Philly, but Philly's got to go through their division. Minnesota, meanwhile,
which is tougher.
They get Detroit and Chicago a part of it too. Yeah, and Philly's path is definitely tougher. But I mean, you've got yesterday Dallas they're up. You and I finished our postgame show. Was it 28-14? I think it was 28-14 Dallas when we wrapped up.
Yep.
And to know that game...
By the time I got home, it was 28-all.
Yeah.
When I looked back down.
I end up at the TV station where I'm watching I mean, you're looking at the overtime finish going, hang on, what just happened here? Because Rodgers completed only 14 passes, and the downfield passing attack was back for Green Bay. Just like that. And they made a concerted effort to run the football, something they had not done well, or consistently well, I should say. They did it well in the first half, and that's why the game was tied 14-14. And then Dallas stormed out. Dak wasn't turning it over. They had the touchdown pass to Dalton Schultz, and all of a sudden, it's a 2-possession lead. And then LaFleur got emotional post-game because his team rallied and won the game when I think behind the podium, he's thinking to himself, that's a moment where we could have cradled. Knowing we've lost 5 straight, we've got Dallas here, we were tied 14-all, we can't run the football now. Rodgers only attempted 6 passes in the first half. He was 4 for 6. Game's tied. I mean, the game plan was to not use the receivers, but then the game plan became that with Watson and others that they got involved. I think there was a wake-up moment, a last stand moment for the Green Bay Packers yesterday that they pulled off in overtime that, I think they have Tennessee and then Philly coming up. And if it's not Philly, it's another good team.
Yeah, they've got, you're right. They have Titans Thursday night at Lambeau. Then they go to Philly, to Chicago, Rams, who are terrible now at home.
That's why yesterday was the last stand.
To Miami, Vikings, Lions at home
and to
close out the season.
The way they went about winning that game, I think, can carry over with some momentum now.
Yes, absolutely. And look at Aaron Rodgers' joy.
I know.
On the Allen Lazard throw where he's skipping up and down because they've sucked. It's hard to find joy when your offense can't move the ball.
They're not throwing it that much yesterday, but you've got the rookies. You got Watson stepping up. He's been on the bench sidelined, I know, and they've got other guys who are banged up. And this is a banged up roster, but man, they beat a very good team in Dallas. They beat a very good defense. The defense has some holes now where they didn't 3 weeks ago. They do now with their run defense. They were shredded yesterday by the rushing attack. And that's now 2 games in a row we've seen that Dallas defense shredded. Point being,
Dak Prescott with too many interceptions in the game also was a big part of it. The going for it on fourth down in overtime. I get the attempt. That backfired. Mike McCarthy throwing his headset after not getting that 4th down. Pretty much knowing that probably the Packers are going to go down and win it after you don't pick up that 4th down conversion, and that's what they did.
Yeah, the Packers rushed 18 times for 93 yards in the first half, and you're up 2 touchdowns in the second half, 4th and 3, and you decide to go for it instead of kick that field goal and extend the lead. Would have been 13 points that they would have extended it to at that time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a backbreaker for McCarthy. McCarthy had been on the path, seriously, of Coach of the Year. He was another one that was just kind of floating underneath the surface because
it's also his return to Lambeau. So there's a lot of factors there why he would be throwing his headset upset in that moment. And you gave life to another NFC team. You could have killed the Packers. That was the death knell. Losing at home to the Cowboys. Instead, they get a big upset win at home in overtime. You inspired some life in that offense. Christian Watson, Lazard, Aaron Rodgers skipping like a schoolboy down the field. They go down and kick the field goal to win it. Packers are very much alive now at 4-6.
I think so.
It's not an impossible schedule ahead.
They're not.
But I'm still betting on them not to make the playoffs.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad
but
you
my
finished that
point
right.
is you gave them a little bit of life.
You
could have killed them, and instead they're barely breathing.
Yeah, the key is they're not dead.
Barely breathing.
And that the last stand aspect of it was
comatose, but not dead.
They literally dumbed it down.
Intensive care.
Aaron Rodgers, Chad, was 4 of 6 for 73 yards passing in the first half, and 58 of the 73 came on the touchdown pass to Christian Watson. I mean, the game plan was to not use Aaron Rodgers. That's crazy.
And it worked.
Well,
ultimately it worked.
It worked. They were tied at 14, and then the game got out of hand. Like it was a 2-touchdown spread. They separated the score. Dallas did. And you can't just run the football with that same mindset and tone. And so they started throwing it around a bit. And, he completed 14 passes against that defense, 24 yards, 224 and 3 touchdown passes for Aaron Rodgers on 14 completions against the Dallas defense that's hard to score against. And when they do allow points, normally the offense is keeping up with you. And they did yesterday. The offense put up points too, but the run defense for Dallas is something to keep an eye on. Ultimately, I think there are a lot of people that are going to harp on Dallas and how they lost this game. That's fine. They still have tremendous talent in CeeDee Lamb. His performance yesterday was unbelievable. You've got Pollard in the backfield now, who's the number 1 back. Ezekiel Elliott coming off a bye week. We didn't know if he was going to play. He didn't play. Tony Pollard continues to play. They've got Dalton Schultz. Prescott is capable of taking over a game. We saw that prior to the bye. Chad, and on top of that, they probably have, pound for pound, the best football player in the NFL and Micah Parsons on the other side. I think there's going to be some bandwagon jumpers that should not do that this week on Dallas. That's my only point.
I think both sides of that equation are true. There's going to be some bandwagon jumpers that should not jump off of Dallas. There's going to be some bandwagon jumpers that should not be jumping on the Packers just yet.
I don't know if that's happening.
Even though
it will happen Thursday night. That will happen Thursday night. Short week. They just saw them beat Dallas, and now they're hosting not just the division leader in the Titans, but the number 1 seed in the AFC from a year ago.
I think those Packers fans are going to be happy after Thursday night.
Maybe so. But that's where I think you'll have the national sentiment that Rodgers is back.
I know we talked a lot of Colts Raiders earlier in the first segment of the show with Jeff Saturday getting that win. Crazy stat about, and we saw it, Hutton. We're hosting the post-game show here locally in Nashville, and we see that long run from Matt Ryan. This was Matt Ryan's 240th regular or postseason game. That's of his NFL career. He had never rushed for 39 yards in a single game, and he rushed for 39 yards on that one scramble against the Raiders late in the game. I looked up in shock because I saw Matt Ryan running down the sideline and then avoiding a tackle at the end when it looked like he was going to step out of bounds. And I'm thinking, this has never happened before. And in fact, I was right. Hadn't even happened in a game over the course of an entire game. Happened in one scramble on Sunday.
Cardinals beat
How about
the Rams.
that Josh McDaniels-led Raiders team?
So did you see the fake tweet from some dude at CBS or some fake CBS account last night?
Are you having a problem with the new Twitter with the people that are paying for verification?
No, this wasn't that. This guy wasn't verified.
I've not had a problem with it yet.
I have no issue with that. The guy had like 50 followers.
Yeah, you have to go look at how many followers if it's something crazy.
But he wasn't verified. It was just something that people were circulating last night, and it happened about 30 minutes after the loss for the Raiders. But it also makes sense. Like, that would be a loss where you're like, okay, if you're going to pull the plug, I guess now's the time. But it also didn't make sense because, I mean, you had the interim tag on Rich Bisaccia last year, and you actually turned things around, and it really didn't matter. You didn't pay attention to it then. And they've got problems. The Derek Carr interview, for those who haven't, the press conference availability, and maybe Colin can find some of this, but this, you can hear, like, he's not totally blameless.
They
Carr.
played it on Don't At Me, by the way, so it may be in that file.
Yeah.
I act like I know where the files are located. Check the Don't At Me file. I'm sure it's in there.
He's not totally blameless, but some of the situations he's in the middle of are just crazy to me. With Oakland and then now Vegas, where he's standing there. You can tell it matters to him. And that's what's so endearing about Derek Carr to me is he's got the arm talent, and, man, he's got the mentality of a dude that you want leading your team. I just don't think behind the scenes guys gravitate to him. I think it's very similar. Maybe you'll disagree, Chad. I think it's similar to a Trevor Lawrence. I don't think Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville has that same type of rapport that Herbert would in Los Angeles, or Burrow's a bad example because Burrow's lapping a lot of quarterbacks right now. Jalen Hurts in Philly. Go around the young quarterbacks here. I don't get that same vibe from Lawrence, and I don't get that vibe from Carr because he's had several chances to do it. And you pointed out to me, I didn't see this. You pointed out to me last week the back and forth with him and even Devontae Adams on the sideline.
Yeah, and it's Derek Carr is an easy guy to like.
Yes.
I think you're right. I mean, he shows that desire, the him getting emotional in the press conference. You feel it with him. He's clearly a guy who feels the losses more than maybe some other pro athletes, and he's talking about that when he talks about his disdain for those that don't care at the same level as him and some other players in that locker room. I think part of that emotion, too, is just the fact that he's not a dumb guy, and he's realizing he just can't get it done. I mean, he's not going to get it done. He says, I'm not having much success in my career for whatever reason. And I think it's him looking in the mirror as well. Not that he's been a bad quarterback, but it's got to be devastating when you fully realize, man, it may be me as part of this. As much as I care and as hard as I work, maybe I'm also part of the problem.
I don't think he looks in the he doesn't see a reflection that shows him he's the problem. I think when he's standing in the mirror and he's in front of his entire team, I don't think he sees in the reflection the same vibe and tone that he's trying to bring. And maybe that I don't think he comes across fake. There's not a Russell Wilson feel to him. That's not what I'm trying to say.
No, it's very genuine.
But we've kind of heard this before from Derek Carr, where, it's well, maybe this isn't for everybody in the locker room, but this is for me. We're going to get this right. We've got is it two clips or one? One. Okay. Here's Derek Carr at the podium yesterday after the loss to Jeff Saturday and the Indianapolis Colts.
I can't speak for everybody. I know where I stand, and I love the silver and black. I'm going to give it everything I can every time I go out there. And I can't speak for everybody, for every man, what's going on in their head. But I can tell you what's going on in my head, and I'm going to give it all that I can every single time.
I mean, he's pausing here. He's about to be interrupted.
Derek, I'm going to ask this with the utmost respect. Last year, with what you did with this team, with everything you guys went through, you endured, and got to the playoffs. This year, it just seems there's frustration at times, obviously, after these losses. Is there, in any way, a disconnect with what you're trying to do and this new staff as far as the system?
I don't think so. I love Josh. I love the car. I love our coaches. They've had nothing but success, way more success than I've ever had, and, I'm sorry.
Derek,
sorry,
continue.
To finish that.
Keep this going.
Sorry for being emotional. I'm just pissed off about some of the things, that a lot of us try and do just to practice what we put our bodies through just to sleep at night. And for that to be the result, of all that effort pisses me off. Pisses a lot of guys off. It's hard knowing what some guys are doing. Like I said, just to practice what they're putting in their body just to sleep at night. Like just so we can be there for each other. And I wish everybody in that room felt the same way about this place. And as a leader, that pisses me off, if I'm being honest.
There's Derek Carr, emotional after the loss to the Colts. And this is a Raiders team, 7-2 in one-score games last season. Last season, Derek Carr went to the postseason for the first time in his career. This season, in one-score games, they're 0-6. That is the difference between the two. And he's already gone through the flux of the Gruden change with the interim and trying to win close, tight games. And now he's got the coordinator of the last decade, Josh McDaniels, coaching him. And they're losing to the analyst of last week, Jeff Saturday.
So, a couple big takeaways from that audio clip. One, bad move by the reporter that interrupts him mid-cry and doesn't let him finish his thought. And he had to say, sorry, let me finish with that initial thought.
Well,
he was clearly going to
keep... two different things. He kind of paused and just looked up.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't saying anything. And that's where the guy chimed in.
I disagree. I thought it was pretty clear he was gathering himself for a second before continuing to talk more. So the reporter interrupting him, bad move by the reporter. Second, this was in spirit the opposite of the Allen Iverson practice rant when he talks about what guys do to get to practice physically, what they put in their body, how they have to go to sleep at night just to show up at practice. I thought this was, if there was a spirit animal, this would be the opposite spirit animal of Allen Iverson with his emotional rant.
So where's the disconnect, though? That's what's really difficult for me to figure out with him. Because he's had all of the talent. I mean, the guy is uber talented. And he's had great players around him offensively. He's got a run game this year. And he had it last year. Josh Jacobs, contract year, I'm all for it. Give that guy the football. They were giving it to him yesterday. And I just don't understand how it doesn't work out more in his favor, given the fact that he's like that. And he's extremely genuine, very good human being, too. Chad, I root for the guy. I want him to be successful. I just don't want to think, everybody needs to jump on board when there have been so many opportunities to do that. And I don't think he's fake. Maybe I'm completely missing the boat. But
he's not fake.
I just don't understand it, man. He needs a change of scenery, I guess, because he's gone through a lot there. And there is nothing to show for it.
Sometimes
he's an afterthought.
Sometimes sports just don't make sense. There are things that we talk about that I love to logically order and say, oh, this result happened because this, and this happened. And this is exactly why this went down this way with this team. Bad leadership, bad play calling, bad quarterback play, bad whatever, and say, you do that and you get beat, and it's all very logical. The career of Derek Carr at times has not been very logical. And it's a good reminder that sports, like life, many times can be completely illogical. And I think that's the career of Derek Carr in many ways. Not that he hasn't earned some of that lack of success with his play on the field.
Right.
But when you hear that emotional response and you watch his ability at times, it doesn't all add up to the career that he's had. And that's unfortunate. And that's the way it goes at times. To me, that's the easiest way to sum up the career of Derek Carr. Tough luck
so far. Like, can he get out of there? I don't know. Well, I do. I mean, he could demand it, but I don't know if he's got that in him. Maybe
Trevor
that's
Lawrence
part of the problem.
Get out of Jacksonville. Is it Jacksonville that's infecting Trevor Lawrence, or is it Trevor Lawrence that's infecting Jacksonville?
It's a little bit of both.
This will be the $1 million question moving forward for that
there were
franchise.
Signs of life yesterday by him, but it too little, too late.
Came in another L
against Kansas City. This is it's bad for Lawrence when you compare him. Like, he was supposed to be Andrew Luck, and when you can start comparing
Peyton
records
Manning.
and
go through all the top prospects. Well, Peyton Manning, there was actually a debate with Ryan Leaf So take him aside. But, yeah, Andrew Luck, look at other number 1 overall picks that there was no debate about them. That was Trevor Lawrence.
Well, and Chat, his numbers, first 27 games of their careers, Andrew Luck, 18-9. Trevor Lawrence, 6-21. And they just recently got their first road win. But they're facing Kansas City. I get it. The game started with an onside kick. And from there, you're supposed to go score, right? Like, you got to have a plan in place. No fast start. They're down 14-0. And it just took way too long. 2-minute offense, quick trigger offense for him is much better than whatever they're doing to start games. We'll touch on that. We'll touch on Mahomes and the Chiefs offense. Brady in Germany. And we've got to get to the Cardinals win over the Rams and what that signals and the injury concerns there with Cooper Kupp. That's next on OutKick 360.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. Let's hear from Jimmy Irsay, the head man, after the game.
You said you weren't going to put one of your best fighters in the ring, knowing he may get pummeled. He did the knocking out today. What did you just tell Jeff Saturday and your team?
Well, just proud of him and all the guys. You know, I knew that Jeff would know how to mold and delegate to some of our great coaches and our players that are great leaders. And Jeff knows how to do that. He's a great leader, and he uses everything around him to make the team better. And I always said that he's an unusual guy and extremely talented and mature beyond his years. And he has those sort of capabilities to do what he did, and all the coaches rallied around him. So proud for, Parks and the whole staff. The defense got a great stop at the end with Gus. And, again, you score 25, you're going to win a lot of games in this league. And just so proud of the team. Everything that's been done has been done to win. It's very simple. Nothing's been done for any reason except what's the best for the franchise. And the same thing with Matt starting today. He felt really healthy. You're on the road in a tough place, and he's still got plenty when you protect him and run the ball like we did. We saw what we're capable of doing, and we really felt if we could get the protections right. And we really simplified things this week. When you're not executing, you practice to execute. When you're still struggling, you simplify. And that's what we had to do. We took a lot of stuff out of the playbook and made sure guys were ready to play hard and ready.
9 to 11 Eastern time at OutKick.com.
Hey guys, it's Tommy. Check out OutKick.com for exclusive content and make sure you follow me on social media at Tommy Lahren. So from the moment it leaked the Supreme Court was rumored to overturn Roe v. Wade, I knew this could be the issue that screwed Republicans, and ding, 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 I wasn't wrong. Exit polling showed about 6 out of 10 voters said they were dissatisfied or angry about the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that overturned Roe v. Wade, and about the same percentage said abortion should be legal. Nationally, over 30% of voters named inflation as the top issue, but here's the kicker. In Michigan and Pennsylvania, it was abortion that was issue numero uno. And guess what, Republicans? Whether you're pro-life, pro-choice, or somewhere in the middle, the fact of the matter is we as a party absolutely suck at messaging on this issue. And here's a reminder for those who forgot. I lean to the pro-choice side of things, but I do agree with the Supreme Court's decision to kick the question back down to the states where it belongs. See, I understand that is what the Dobbs decision did, but guess what? A lot of Americans don't get it. They've bought into the very effective and very false fear propaganda the left has been peddling that abortion was made illegal, or that women who have a miscarriage or choose their own life before their unborn child will somehow be prosecuted and thrown in jail. That's a crock of crap. It's not what the Dobbs decision did or said, but some people are kind of stupid. Voters are uneducated. They listen to pop and TikTok stars and don't bother to even do basic baseline research, not even a freaking Google search or ask Siri. That's unfortunate, but newsflash, it's not changing because voters, especially the young ones, are getting dumber. So it's up to Republicans to take back the narrative and get our messaging through loud and clear. It is not helpful for Republicans to spout off about banning abortion. It's not. And if we want to win a presidential election for the rest of eternity, we better stop making that our battle cry. And if you think any differently, you're lying to yourself, however self-righteous it may sound in your own head. Tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern as I give you my hot takes and, of course, my final thoughts.
Coming up, we dive back into the SEC headlines.
Hutton, please share the note that you just pulled from Twitter.
Yeah,
That's
randomly
absolutely fascinating.
Jonah Hill holds the record for most curse words said by an actor on screen in film history.
The research that it would take to find this and compare it to every actor in the history of cinema to find it would be incredible.
So
then yes, I put the emphasis on
this is in
I
one
know that's
film.
not how it's actually pronounced.
This
that's
is the
my
record.
uppity voice.
This is the record for one film.
Oh. Is it Superbad? It doesn't have the movie?
I can click through this.
I'll find it.
It's 376 curse words. That's the record. He beat out Samuel L. Jackson, who was at 370.
Yeah, I guess Samuel L. Jackson, who's been in a lot more things.
Maybe that was
if you're going through all movies.
Maybe that was a goal of his in the movie.
You got to be in the Guinness Book of World Records for something. Might as well be that.
Just an ankle injury for Cooper Kupp. That's good news for a Rams team that doesn't have much good news after yesterday's loss to the Arizona Cardinals. The battle of backup quarterbacks in this, and man, Colt McCoy got it done. 2 out of 3, by the way, on our upset picks this week. Straight up upsets in the NFL.
Not a bad week, Hutton. Not a bad week.
Cardinals and Steelers got it done for us. Cardinals win 27-17. The Rams are done. You've got Stafford, who's hurt in concussion protocol. Their offensive line's been bad all year. Cooper Kupp has the ankle injury, but it doesn't appear to be season ending by any account based on the reports coming out of Los Angeles. So that's good news. But here's the thing about Cooper Kupp that shocked me. Over the last 30 games, he's had 4 games out of 30 with 5 or fewer receptions. And all 4 of those games are against the Arizona Cardinals. Some of that's, Patrick Peterson's playing at the time, I'm sure. 4 of the 30, less than 5 receptions. All 4 are against the Cardinals. And they did it again yesterday. 3 catches for -1. That was the stat line for Cooper Kupp, last year's offensive MVP.
Hutton, I found the info that we've been waiting for. For Jonah Hill, it is over his entire filmography. He leads the way. 3,500 films scripted were looked at. 376 curse words. Second is this according to Variety. Okay. Leonardo DiCaprio, 361. Most of Hill's curse words were split between two movies, Superbad and The Wolf of Wall Street.
Okay.
DiCaprio second, Samuel Jackson
376
third,
sounds low, though, for a
301.
career, right? Like the most ever is 376?
It does sound low.
That's why this other article says a film. I don't know. I thought it was weird. That was not the name I would have guessed. No one's guessing that. But now our audience knows, and next time it's in trivia.
Wolf of Wall Street, by the way, passed Pulp Fiction for the film with the most curse words. 715 curse words in The Wolf of Wall Street.
It's my favorite film. Not because of that. Just, I love it.
Hunt's going to drop a few F-bombs when we come back.
That's right. Headlines when we return, and we get to college football and the SEC and Kentucky, Arkansas, and more.
College football's in trouble. There's a lot of people trying to keep it from happening.
I think it's a general consensus across the college football landscape. We want to play football.
College football is a huge part of the fall. It's a huge part of Americana itself.
It just really felt like people in the country needed college football to just feel a little sense of normal.
Big news from the Big Ten as the conference releasing its 10-game football schedule.
We go home thinking that we're going to be practicing the next day. Everybody gets a text, stay home, everything's canceled.
Big Ten fall football season has been canceled.
We just believe collectively there's too much uncertainty.
I guess what I'm trying to understand, though, Kevin, is that was the same position you had 6 days ago.
The Big Ten is an unmitigated disaster.
There was a ton of confusion. There was presidents saying one thing, there was coaches saying another.
Players had to be silent, coaches had to be silent, ADs had to be silent.
People said, how does what you just did make any sense?
And nobody really knew what the heck happened when they voted to cancel the season.
You make this huge historical announcement, and then Kevin Warren never does a press conference to explain it. It was like a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis.
The word really that was lacking in all this is transparency.
It felt like a lot of stuff was happening behind closed doors.
Even today, we still don't know what occurred.
So you don't tell us parents, that's fine, but you're not telling the young men that it affects.
We have to make a decision to save the season. What about the history books? What about the rivalry games? What about Paul Bunyan's axe? How is that not going to go to a team this year?
This is a failure of epic magnitude. The Big Ten presidents and leaders should be held accountable for the disastrous decisions that they're making.
Then the commissioner doubles down, saying his decision will not be revisited.
And that's the point. It felt like a war was declared on the Big Ten and Kevin Warren.
Everything turned political.
Because if this is medical, then you would have stopped the game of football a long time ago.
I think the Big Ten leaders will tell you that they probably made a mistake in hindsight.
If I had the chance to do it all over last year, I would make the same decisions that we made.
Third hour is here. OutKick 360 from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Restocking the shelves here on this Monday. We're going through all the results, college and pro, and college shakeup we saw from the Pac-12. Oregon falls to Washington. By the way, Michael Penix Jr.
Got to go very slow. The only way to say that name.
He has about 800 more yards passing than Hendon Hooker. That is crazy when you consider how much Tennessee throws the football and how just consistent they are within that offense in Knoxville. Just put that in perspective of what he's doing out there in Washington. That was a great game.
I saw it. Yeah, it was. So that was a fun finish to that one. A huge win for Washington. A big loss, obviously, for Oregon for their playoff hopes. I saw this stat, though, on Hendon Hooker. You brought up Penix. Hooker, in addition to being the most accurate passer in the SEC, 71.1%. He also averages more yards per completion, 14.16, and more yards per attempt, over 10, than any other SEC quarterback. That is nearly impossible to pull off. Because usually if your percentage is over 70 or something gaudy like that,
it's
short passes,
dink and dunk,
your pass per attempt, pass per completion is going to be down.
It's like 7 or less.
He is first in the SEC in all three categories, which is remarkable. He is hitting the long pass at a high clip, percentage-wise.
I mean, he threw for 408 yards, 2 scores in the win, the 62-yard touchdown to Taj Davis, to tie the game at 34 with, 3 minutes to play in that game. I don't hear his name in regards to the Heisman discussion. Is it weird that the Heisman discussion this year has been really a non-conversation piece?
Well, I feel like there was a lot of hype about Hooker going into the Georgia game, and then once he didn't play well.
But it was kind of just him, though.
Yes, but that's my point. Once he didn't play well, that we stopped talking about everybody. I feel like everybody just kind of became the same at that point.
I don't think we were talking about really anybody prior to Hendon Hooker, though. It was, you had Stroud and then Bryce Young, who's back as the Heisman winner, but Stetson Bennett through the first 3 games, I guess, got a little traction, but I mean, you and I think the diehards would know that Bo Nix was getting some discussion, but nothing like the hype we would see if it's just a 4 or 5 quarterback packed race for this. I think that you could easily try to turn it into that manufactured debate. I'm glad we haven't made that here. I'm just kind of surprised we haven't heard more of it.
Blake Corum's going to get some run too, who's had a great year as a running back at Michigan. But yeah, I think there was a lot of talk early, and then Hooker's name elevated to the top, and then he had the bad performance, and then now it's just kind of everybody's right around the same. When you look at the top, C.J. Stroud, Hooker, Bo Nix, all those guys are hanging right around each other. Speaking of Hooker in Tennessee, did you have any issue, Hutton, with Josh Heupel scoring to make it 66 at the end of the game?
No. With
30 seconds left?
No, but I realized, we are in the middle of a sea change. And Dockage asked me about this morning. It's a great question. Look at the criteria.
I've got strong feelings on this.
Look at the criteria for the college football playoff. Nowhere in there is there anything for good sportsmanship. There is, and I'm not against that, by the way. I would also say that when it comes down to common opponents and some splash and some flash to what they're doing, Tennessee doesn't have another resume builder other than pure and utter dominance over their opponent on the final 3 games, like it or not. And the fact that they ran it back with basically the same exact score from a year ago against a better and much improved Missouri defense, that's an exclamation mark on a game none of those dudes watched on the committee, quite frankly. So they're going to see the number on the paper.
Yes.
Not the play.
Yes.
And that's the there's no recognition for, they could have scored again but chose not to. That doesn't nowhere is that being discussed in that committee room. So
you know what else isn't being discussed? And I've heard this ridiculous argument that they're going to look at that and they're going to deduct points from Tennessee for lack of sportsmanship. And I'm thinking, no, they're not. Most of them are going to look at a bunch of charts of statistics and what Tennessee did against opponents and like opponents and points per game and all of that. It's going to be a number. So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple. Look, I would get it if Missouri had conceded and had second and third stringers in, and Tennessee still playing Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt in that moment. But when you put your backups in, let them play. Let your backups play the game. Josh Heupel was asked about it today and said, well, we had our twos in. Don't really know what to do in that situation other than let them play football when they work all week to get into a game. And that's what he did. I've got no issue with it at all.
Yeah, in the moment, you're calling the game and you're thinking, oh, they're going to kneel this out. Neuheisel's like, they're going to kneel this out. And I'm thinking they called timeout here. They're not putting, they put the seniors in. Like, we saw Grant Firking on the field for that play, for that touchdown.
Yeah.
They're throwing up the bomb because they're running their offense and they're trying to add to the injury out there. Again, is it great sportsmanship? No. Is it great for the resume? Yes. And that's just kind of where we are right now with this committee, which we don't know what they weigh heavier than the other on any given week. And everyone's paying attention to Oregon. And let's take a glimpse at Georgia, Mississippi State, because we have seen what Missouri did to Georgia. Can Mississippi State keep up with them? The answer is no. But no, I don't think anybody's really paying attention to Tennessee, Missouri last Saturday compared to the other slate. And we give Georgia a ton of credit for what they did to Oregon.
And this is with Tennessee, Missouri, it's a bigger picture thing now with style points. Kirk Herbstreit on College Game Day, an ESPN employee. By the way, ESPN has the rights to the college football playoff. Said Tennessee needs style points against these three opponents. And then the moment Tennessee tacks on an extra touchdown, it's like they committed some crime against humanity to score 66 points against Missouri. And, oh, by the way, let me remind people, a Missouri team coached by Eli Drinkwitz, who had the audacity to call out Tennessee football on a Jim Rome interview before the season. You don't think Josh Heupel keeps receipts? He was joking about how Tennessee's going to have to vacate games and his record's about to get better and made fun of the program under Jeremy Pruitt. That's fine. If you want to take shots when someone's down, good. Go ahead. If that's your personality, just understand that the team that you're taking shots at, when they have the chance, can take that shot right back. And they can run it in with 30 seconds left to put 66 on you. This is a fact. I have no issue with it for a number of reasons, and that's one of them. If Josh Heupel wants to go on an interview circuit this summer and call out every opponent he whipped this year and make fun of them in some way, he won't do it because that's not his personality. But if he wants to do that and those programs have a chance to run the score up on him with that coach, I fully expect them to do it, and I endorse it if that's in fact the case.
Tennessee currently leads the country with 543 yards and 47 points per game. And the extra touchdown helps with that stat. That will be acknowledged more than going for the touchdown at the end of the game against Missouri. And that's the whole point of why you do it. It helps the resume. Point blank. And
it's very simple.
It's also a Missouri defense that was worthy of the hype that they were receiving. And Tennessee still scored, what was it? How many unanswered points in this game? The final score is 66-24, but
28-24, so however many that is to 66.
Yeah, again, they just
36
on a day where there was a lot of
38
average quarterback play.
38.
Hendon Hooker was on his game. I thought he rebounded very well from the play. I wish we'd have seen this version of him a week ago.
Yeah, and Missouri, third best defense in the SEC, 13th nationally coming in. And Tennessee had a school record yards against them for the history of the program and 66 points. Here's another stat. This is from Wes Rucker of 24/7. TCU, looking head-to-head with Tennessee, TCU has beaten 4 bowl-eligible teams by an average margin of 6.7 points. Tennessee has beaten 6 bowl-eligible teams by an average of 22 points.
Right.
Remember a week ago, Hutton, I criticized the committee because they came out and had this new stat where they said, well, we like that TCU has beaten so many teams with a winning record. But you compare the opponents' records head-to-head, and it's not close. Tennessee's opponents have a far better record as a group than TCU. So that's another one to throw in there. But you're right on what you say. The margin of victory is going to matter, even if the committee wants to argue, and it doesn't matter anymore now that Oregon lost, but that Oregon losing 49-3 is no different than Tennessee losing 27-13 because Georgia controlled both games. That's bogus. And when it comes down to it, on final cut-down day, I don't think that would be the case. Even if they say that now, they're going to look at point totals, and they're going to look at margin of victory for all these teams.
Chad, who would you say has lost the most shine in 2022? Arkansas or Kentucky, based on expectations in the East and the West? And the West is more difficult. That's fine. Arkansas is a part of that scenario, part of the puzzle of why it's so difficult. I think it's a very close race to determine who's lost the most shine here, based on how I've seen both teams play. Now, Arkansas doesn't have the awful loss that we saw from Kentucky this past week to a Vandy team that hadn't won an SEC game since 2019.
I don't know. They've lost to Liberty, who just lost to UConn.
But at least Liberty Liberty. Let's go to Vegas for this. Where is Liberty ranked compared to Vandy on a neutral field?
I'm sure they're ahead of them. Look, I'm not going to debate that it's a worse loss to lose at home to Vandy.
Yeah.
It's the worst of those losses, but when you combine, my one argument, when you combine, you are A&M's only SEC win. Kentucky is Vandy's only SEC win.
Yeah.
But they are tied for the cellar with one SEC win apiece. Arkansas lost to A&M. In the worst year A&M's going to have maybe for a long time, you would think. And then to lose at home to Liberty, I think the combination of those two, pretty bad.
So they didn't have Jefferson's the big difference here. Kentucky's had the vast majority of the season anyway, Levis. And every single week for the last 2 months, I feel like we're trying to figure out whether or not KJ Jefferson's healthy and going to play. Right?
Yeah.
That's the only leeway I give Arkansas here. But still, so many opportunities here for Arkansas to do and get the game where they wanted. They did a lot of things defensively that they had to do against LSU. They gave up less than 4 yards per carry against LSU. They held Jaden Daniels to 10 yards on the ground total. They sacked Daniels 7 times in this game. 2 turnovers. They allowed only 284 total yards. But, and by the way, 2 penalties. That's the other thing. 2 penalties the entire game. But they lost because, just like last season, Arkansas was forced to play without their quarterback, and the offense is just not remotely the same. And there is just this lackluster feel on what's been a very good vibe with Sam Pittman that I'm not saying that the shine's off and it's not coming back. I'm just saying the shine is off compared to where we were 3 months ago.
Yeah, it was a big love fest.
Definitely with Kentucky, too. Same thing. I think probably more so with the love fest with Kentucky.
Yeah, for both. The combination of Levis and KJ Jefferson, I think that's a mark against Mark Stoops because Levis is the guy that's got the big NFL pedigree.
Yeah.
So that's a big mark against him with how atrocious that offense has been. Let's look at the tail of the tape between these two teams, okay? I went through the worst losses. You're right. Vandy at home, atrocious. That ended a 26-game SEC losing streak. And they were an 18-point home favorite against Vanderbilt and lost outright in that game. Now,
wait. Let me add to it. Mike Wright started.
Yes.
Who was benched after 3 games.
And Mike Wright had a 61-yard touchdown run.
He was great. But again, backup QB here for Vandy. Riding a little momentum on how they've played recently. But again, they haven't won the SEC since 2019.
Worst losses for Arkansas this year. Liberty at home, 21-19. We would agree on that.
Yes.
23-21 to A&M.
Yes.
Neutral site. Both 2-point losses. Best wins for Arkansas. Win over 23rd ranked Cincinnati to open the season, 31-24. And a win at BYU. BYU is not very good. They might not go to a bowl this year, but they won in Provo 52-35. Those are the 2 best wins for Arkansas. 2 worst losses for Kentucky this year. Vanderbilt, absolutely. 24-21. And I'm going to say at home, even with a backup quarterback, losing 24-14 to South Carolina is the other one.
Yes.
Now, 2 best wins for Kentucky on the flip side. At Florida, 26-16, is clearly their best win. And then at home against Mississippi State, 27-17. It's really close, Hutton. It's a great question because you could argue either side of that as to who's having the worst year. I'll say this, though, for Sam Pittman. He's not been there near as long
well, that's
as Mark Stoops. So that's probably a notch for him in this one. But both have had rough seasons, and both guys are universally heralded by the media.
Well,
by those that cover them and by those nationally. And I get it. It's 2 programs that, while Arkansas has had a much richer history in football than Kentucky, 2 programs you don't expect to be at the top of the conference or the top of their respective divisions. And they both have built a clear identity around their programs and around their teams. Man, I've got a hard time answering this. I'm going to go with Stoops as the most shine has come off of it, simply because Will Levis is so glaringly bad for someone that Mel Kiper thinks is a top 10 pick.
Here's all you need to know about Will Levis against Vandy. Joe Milton had more passing yards Saturday than Will Levis.
He came into the 4th quarter.
Think about that. And here's
by the way, Vandy, let me also add this in. Vandy is one of the second to worst, I think 130 out of 131 in passing defense. And that's what Will Levis did against that passing defense. Missouri came in a top 15 national defense and 3rd in the SEC.
Here's the thing, though. What we saw against Vandy for Kentucky is a trend. Because I pointed out, okay, if you're going to go on the road and lose to Missouri after losing to South Carolina, and you've got this whole trend going here, we're going to start mentioning you with Vandy and not mentioning you with the upper tier, South Carolina and they go on the road and they beat Missouri, but I mean they're a loss away from they're a play away against Missouri from finishing in a tie for the worst record intra-division, Kentucky. And then also keep this in mind. This is the deciding factor for me on the question. Arkansas, well, I can say they've looked lifeless maybe a couple games. Maybe one. We'll look at Liberty. Kentucky looked lifeless against South Carolina. They looked lifeless against Tennessee. They were lifeless against Vanderbilt. They're about to get crushed by Georgia at 2:30 Central and CBS. I mean, how quickly the star has faded in Lexington with a program that was heralded as the number 2 program in the SEC East behind Georgia, the defending national champion. And when they met last year in Athens mid-season, what was it, 6-0 against 6-0, 5-0 against 5-0? Nowhere close to that now. It's not even this is a game that in August I would be ready to, if I'm not watching, I'm DVRing it, right? I've got to see it. I don't have to see this game. I don't have to see Will Levis and Chris Rodriguez now. There's nothing to watch here because there hasn't been anything to see from this program against South Carolina, really against Missouri. They won the game, but Tennessee, boat raced. You felt that coming. Last week, lost to Vandy. And allowed you had the lead, allowed the game-winning drive. And then you've got Georgia next, who does not look ahead. They do not, bypass certain programs the way others might. And I realize we saw what happened with Missouri. Georgia's not going to be in a dogfight with Kentucky. I just don't find it possible given what we just saw, Jeff.
No. I think this has 31-6 written all over it.
At best.
I don't think Kentucky can score at all against them.
It's crazy to think that you saw the spread. with Vandy and Kentucky, and I'm thinking, this is like a 10-point ball game, but Kentucky's going to win, but Vandy's going to cover. Because you have no faith in Will Levis of really cranking it up and turning it on against any opponent. And that's it's just odd that he's got a ton of arm talent, and it's not all by the way, it's not all about him. They've recruited for years now. They should be a lot better. And Rodriguez is still very good. But, I mean, this is not the same Kentucky that we saw last year at this time.
No. And meanwhile, on the flip side, you've got Missouri and Arkansas that will likely be playing in a bowl elimination game on Black Friday. Missouri plays New Mexico State this weekend. They'll get to 5-6 with that one. Right now, Arkansas is 5-5. They host Ole Miss. That's probably a loss. And then they go to Missouri on Black Friday. Both those teams will probably be sitting at 5-6. Winner goes to a bowl, loser's done.
Think about this, too.
Think about that for those two programs and expectations coming in, especially for Arkansas, how disappointing that is.
And just final note on Stoops. This will be the first year in how many years that it's possible that the automatic annual addition to his contract doesn't lock in? He only has to reach 7 games. When they got the extension, the big bonuses for 7 wins were just guaranteed. But he automatically has his contract. There's another year tacked on automatically at the back end for every season where he wins his 7th game. Should have been this past weekend. And now he's got Georgia and then Louisville coming up.
It's a great question. I mean, it's a good question because I think if we did a poll question around it, you'd get a 50-50 response, and it's warranted. It's hard to pick one or the other in terms of which program has been more disappointing. But again, my personal answer, I'm going with Kentucky because of Levis. And look, it's not Levis's fault that he's overrated by Mel Kiper and other draft analysts. It's not. He's not that good. It's not his fault that they're overrating him. But I also feel like those guys are hearing that from someone in the NFL. And I don't understand it. Don't understand it one bit from what we've seen on the field.
Back to the NFL. We'll continue our discussion of results from Week 10. We will take a look at what Tampa did to Seattle. I have a Seattle Seahawks comparison from last year for you. And Titans over the Broncos. Steelers get the win. What that means and what the Saints are telling us. I've come to appreciate one person in particular based on that Steelers-Saints game. We'll also preview Monday Night Football for you coming up on OutKick 360.
Was there a moment that you always look back to from Black Hawk Down and you said to yourself in that moment, I am not making it out. Like, I will not survive today because of this one thing?
It was kind of the entire day, the entire night. There was a portion of time, I think, in the middle of the night where things kind of calmed down and it wasn't as chaotic, and we were just kind of sitting waiting for guys in helicopters to get, extricated and things like that. And it wasn't until the sun started to kind of peak back up where you're like, uh-oh, this is going to turn back on again. But for the initial assault and, 2 or 3 times that I went out into the city, it was just, I don't think any of us are going to make it out alive. And so every time we would kind of get back and be secure and, all right, get more ammo, and we're going back out to try and find this other crash site. And I didn't think that it was happening for any of us. I kind of came to peace. I was just telling my son about this actually the other day, but I kind of came to peace with, okay, if I get hit in the chest, like I've got a plate carrier, hopefully that stops it. If I get hit in the arms or the legs, chances are I'll live. And if I get hit anywhere else, it's probably going to be pretty quick and traumatic and over. So I hope that I remember thinking specifically in the middle of the afternoon, I hope that I can just like look at the blue sky and have something peaceful to look at, not this whole, what I'm looking at in front of me. I hope that's not my last moments. And that kind of gave me a little bit of peace.
This one, I picked it because the caption's just frankly funny. And it's also geotagged your mom's house. It says balls deep, as we used to say, long before it was a popular term. The meaning to us referred to how far into bad guy territory we were. These are a few picks from that day and also a pick of us getting ready to go. We lost a mate on this day, Andy Fernandez. Although he was brand new to the unit, he had just been assigned, he left his mark, and will forever be etched into historic endeavors. R.I.P. Andy. So I know you probably can't get into specifics. The caption's hilarious, the top half of it anyways. But Are you able to say anything about what this Instagram post is in relation to?
That was post gunfight. I think it's been talked about in some book, someplace. So I don't read any military history stuff. So I don't know. People will send me things sometimes where like, oh, this must be from this book that so and so wrote about. Like I don't know. It was kind of post gunfight. We were outnumbered and surrounded by 130, 150 dudes, and had at least beat everybody back enough that that was kind of that moment when that picture was taken. So we didn't necessarily know at the time, like it was any gunfight is a scary moment, and you don't really necessarily know the outcome, but it was almost for me and where I was, it was almost a fun gunfight. Like they couldn't hit me where I was, and they couldn't hit my group where we were based on the terrain. And so we were almost kind of laughing, running back and forth, shooting at these guys over here, go grab some more ammo, go shoot at these guys over here. And so it wasn't, a terrifying moment. It turned into not to be a terrifying moment. But then we started hearing radio calls, hey, we got some people hit and injured, and okay, well, now this is a serious thing. It's not a funny thing anymore. And if anything, the post kind of reflects that, where, initially, hey, haha, fun. This was, a good day. And then, somebody paid the ultimate price that day. And but that's about as much as I can say.
You're hearing the scene that was Munich, Germany yesterday. Buccaneers over the Seahawks. Country Road is playing, and everyone's singing along in the stadium. Tom Brady called it one of the best football experiences he's ever had. And this is a guy who's played overseas now 4 times now, where he's 4-0. He's played twice in London, once in Mexico City, and now once in Munich. And he said this one was unbelievable for him with the overall experience, and the crowd was epic. And then you've got Roger Goodell, Chad, saying that they're going to play no less than 4 times now between now and 2025 there.
Good time for Brady to get out of the country, too, now that it's been revealed that Giselle is dating her Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor.
Maybe they're there.
That she's been going to see. I don't know they've been dating since then, but she's been seeing this guy for Brazilian jiu-jitsu training since February. So Brady picked a good time to go to Germany for this. But it was cool when he went to the post-game press conference. He said, "Thank you so much for hosting us. You've created a memorable experience for everyone that was a part of this trip that went to that game." It was very cool. I like this concept of every country adopting an NFL team. If you could almost have, almost like the United States Army outreach of having branches or having bases in different foreign countries, if you had like an outpost for every team in the NFL, if the Tennessee Titans claimed Belgium and the Tampa Bay Bucks were Germany, and it doesn't have to be Europe. If the Miami Dolphins were Brazil, for example, I think that'd be pretty cool if you could somehow, I know these countries all have fans of every team, and you're not going to be able to completely avoid that, but almost an outreach program where each NFL team is adopted by a separate country, which then pulls in a game every so often where that team comes and plays in that country.
I think in a decade we're going to have a whole new division in Europe. I think we're headed there.
See, I think that what I'm laying out is more doable in the short term. I don't disagree, Hutton. I think eventually in the future that's going to be the case.
And the fan bases are going to be built.
How far off is that?
I think it's in the next 10 years. I think the money is going to speak to that. And also keep in mind what you're saying. I mean, last year, NFL owners had the right to bid on certain television markets across the world, globally. Some chose to do it. We had 8 teams that paid for rights in Mexico. One team was in Switzerland, I think. Like, it just random things like that. I think those are the organizations that are allowed to actually advertise and boost their overall persona there for whatever reason they wanted to be in those areas of the world. And I think that's why, to your point, I think we'll see those teams kind of rise to the top on the global recognition. The Texans are ones that I believe went to Mexico. Rams, Arizona. And then you've got other teams that are like, of course, Jacksonville, London. But there was another team that was like randomly in Germany, Well,
there's also reports now the Dolphins want to play in either Spain or Brazil in a game.
Okay.
The Rams badly want to get to Australia and play a game at some point. So there's these teams that you talked about, the territory grabbing for specific franchises. They're wanting to get there and play games.
So here we go. Australia. These teams played for the home marketing rights and areas.
They bid for it, right?
No, if you placed a bid, I think you were accepted. Like, everybody who bid on Mexico got it. So, but you had to jump in. So Mexico: Cardinals, Cowboys, Broncos, Texans, Chiefs, Raiders, Rams, Steelers, 49ers. So my guess is not only is that branding that team, but if they're going to show games in a quote-unquote local market, those are the teams. That's my guess here. I'm sure there are other reasons that all these clubs, but 10 clubs used the 2022 NFL draft to point out their international marketing efforts. Australia is the Rams and the Eagles. The Dolphins are in Brazil. Canada with the Vikings and Seahawks. That makes sense, right?
Yep.
Rams in China. Panthers, Chiefs, Patriots, Bucks in Germany. There's no coincidence that the Bucks were in Germany this year with Brady.
There apparently are a ton of Chiefs fans in Germany. Reading Peter King's column today, he referenced that. The Chiefs, and it was one other team that was sort of surprising. That's the big German-based team in terms of fan bases.
Panthers
there.
Or Patriots?
Patriots. That's it. That's another one. So it was Patriots. Chiefs are huge in Germany.
They're paying for those marketing rights there. New Zealand, Rams and Eagles. Spain, were the Bears and Dolphins. And the Eagles are in Ghana. And for the United Kingdom, Bears, Jags, Dolphins, Vikings, Jets, 49ers. Just, again, it's a lot of the same teams, but these clubs last year chose to place their bids in on making sure that they can license their organization in these countries. And I thought it was cool.
It was a great scene. It's tough to be cynical about it when you see the fans singing Country Roads by John Denver together. They had Sweet Caroline going at one point, all in perfect English. It's really cool to see that level of support. And yeah, I know, look, it's one game. One game that they're going to be there. Yeah, I think they're going to be there 4 times over the next 2 years or something like that. But to see that level of fandom and support is really cool. And Europe is, what is it all about, Hutton? What is it always about? The money. And European markets are going to be huge. They already are for the NFL. So they're going to tap into those however they can. I still it boggles my mind thinking about, and I know travels can get easier and easier with how you do this, but the possibility of a European division and how you work that into a 17-game NFL schedule.
It won't have to be like that, though, because over half of your games will be played within the country. So you're traveling as much as the average team here anyway. But if you
just have to do long road trips when you come to the States.
Yes, or they're coming to you.
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah, you're going to host teams too.
But you're hosting teams, but you're guaranteed at least 3 games on the road in the country because you've got your other team. That's why they want to start the division instead of one team, because it would be like the Titans playing the Jags, Colts, and Texans. They would be traveling within a short distance compared to...
You swap week to week with those 4 teams going to that division.
Or whenever.
Where next week, people are going to different places in Europe and playing a game. So you're basically there for a month if you're a visiting team.
But again, no, you wouldn't do that. You would have to... I think every team would be assigned... That's why they want to do a division, because the division would be assigned to another... pocket or group of schedule makers would assign like the NFC West or the NFC East, and then everybody would get one trip over, because they're already doing 4 or 5 trips right now with 2 clubs each. So it's about the same amount. The only difference is you have a brand new division with 4 more organizations.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, would it be easiest if you paired with another division? Let's say the European division, those 4 teams match up with the NFC East. So the NFC East goes to Europe, and you're basically there for a month because you're going from one European team to the next and swapping out every week.
I think what they would do
where just every few years you're going to have a month-long trip to Europe, and that's going to happen with 2 divisions each year, where they go there and then they're going to have to come here for a month.
I don't know about the logistics of that. I think they would... There's got to be some type of competitive balance where if you're the crossover AFC division playing the NFC, you're only making 1 trip that year or something, like no different than what you would do this year. And you have to make so many trips every so often. Like Green Bay finally played, they gave up a home game to play in London this year. They were the last team to do it. There's got to be some type of balance there, because I don't think there's any way you can ask. I mean, the amount of people that the organizations would have to uproot and take, just being a part of a Titans road trip who stayed in Arizona for a week, it is mind-blowing the amount of staff and support team that you need in order to pull that off. I don't think you could do that for a month.
But yeah, there's a lot that has to be worked out, because it's either do that for a month and embed,
but it's still
in a continent and travel from city to city through different countries, or you're going to have a lot of long flight over, long flight back for different teams, back and forth.
And more and more of these teams now are leaving on like Thursday for these Sunday games. So they're flying into Friday afternoon, mid-morning or early afternoon, and just picking up there, and then playing on Sunday. They don't even need time to adjust. And that was the big talk was, you got to get over there early and acclimate. So many teams now are not doing that. Hit us up with your thoughts at OutKick 360. Jeff Saturday getting it done on the road against the Raiders. And here he is discussing what it's like to walk into a locker room as a head coach and getting win number 1.
It was magical, in all honesty. I felt very at peace. I felt like we had a really good plan in place. I felt like all the men who I had talked about empowering and giving them the ability to do what they can do exceptionally well, they all stepped up. And so I knew what my role was, and I was going to execute my role to the best of my ability, and I was going to allow all of those men to do the same. And again, it's 1 win, but heck, man, they're hard to get in this NFL. So just really proud of each and every one of them in their effort.
They brought it. The Raiders did not. We touched on the losing aspect of that earlier, and now you've got Jeff Saturday. Did you see the tweet from Jim Irsay? You have it there?
This was an hour ago. Yeah, I've got it right in front of me. Jim Irsay tweets, all you critics, you criticize all of us in the NFL for losing. When we make moves to win, you act so righteous. Who you crapping? Just win, baby. And stole a line from the late Al Davis after beating his team, the Raiders, with the just win, baby, at the end.
It's amazing how quickly everyone has turned on the Colts. They have been the media darling for like 4 years. And here they are with the owner just mocking the vast majority of media who, were mocking him for hiring Jeff Saturday.
I don't blame him.
Well,
for going after the media giveth and taketh away. I get it. He got the benefit of media, especially locally in Indianapolis, for a long time.
Yeah.
But I also have a problem with Bill Cowher and others acting like you spat on the Ark of the Covenant because you dared to hire someone who just played in the NFL and didn't spend 20 years as an NFL assistant. And the guy won in game one. That part makes me happy that Saturday came in and won. Showing Bill Cowher and others it may not be the hardest job on the planet.
A crazy stat for Russell Wilson and the Broncos offense on where they would need to reach on the scoreboard in order to have a vastly different perception of how we look at them today as they went back home with another loss after yesterday's Titans victory at home at Nissan Stadium. With a very banged-up defense. We'll get into that. We'll preview Monday Night Football and much more. That's all straight ahead on OutKick 360.
Hey, listen, if you missed my show, don't at me. I've got you covered. Take a look. Let's hear from Jimmy Irsay, the head man, after the game.
You said you weren't going to put one of your best fighters in the ring, knowing he may get pummeled. He did the knocking out today. What did you just tell Jeff Saturday and your team?
Well, just proud of him and all the guys. I knew that Jeff would know how to mold and delegate to some of our great coaches and our players that are great leaders. And Jeff knows how to do that. He's a great leader, and he uses everything around him to make the team better. And I always said that he's an unusual guy and extremely talented and mature beyond his years. And he has those sort of capabilities to do what he did, and all the coaches rallied around him. So proud for Parks and the whole staff. The defense got a great stop at the end with Gus, and again, you score 25, you're going to win a lot of games in this league, and just so proud of the team. Everything that's been done has been done to win. It's very simple. Nothing's been done for any reason except what's the best for the franchise. And the same thing with Matt starting today. He felt really healthy. You're on the road in a tough place, and he's still got plenty when you protect him and run the ball like we did. We saw what we're capable of doing, and we really felt if we could get the protections right. And we really simplified things this week. When you're not executing, you practice to execute. When you're still struggling, you simplify. And that's what we had to do. We took a lot of stuff out of the playbook and made sure guys were ready to play hard and ready.
9 to 11 Eastern time at OutKick.com.
Hey guys, it's Tommy. Check out OutKick.com for exclusive content and make sure you follow me on social media at Tommy Lahren. So from the moment it leaked the Supreme Court was rumored to overturn Roe v. Wade, I knew this could be the issue that screwed Republicans, and ding, 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 I wasn't wrong. Exit polling showed about 6 out of 10 voters said they were dissatisfied or angry about the U.S. Supreme Court ruling that overturned Roe v. Wade, and about the same percentage said abortion should be legal. Nationally, over 30% of voters named inflation as the top issue, but here's the kicker. In Michigan and Pennsylvania, it was abortion that was issue numero uno. And guess what, Republicans? Whether you're pro-life, pro-choice, or somewhere in the middle, the fact of the matter is we as a party absolutely suck at messaging on this issue. And here's a reminder for those who forgot. I lean to the pro-choice side of things, but I do agree with the Supreme Court's decision to kick the question back down to the states where it belongs. See, I understand that that is what the Dobbs decision did, but guess what? A lot of Americans don't get it. They've bought into the very effective and very false fear propaganda the left has been peddling that abortion was made illegal, or that women who have a miscarriage or choose their own life before their unborn child will somehow be prosecuted and thrown in jail. That's a crock of crap. It's not what the Dobbs decision did or said, but some people are kind of stupid. Voters are uneducated. They listen to pop and TikTok stars and don't bother to even do basic baseline research, not even a freaking Google search or ask Siri. That's unfortunate, but newsflash, it's not changing because voters, especially the young ones, are getting dumber. So it's up to Republicans to take back the narrative and get our messaging through loud and clear. It is not helpful for Republicans to spout off about banning abortion. It's not. And if we want to win a presidential election for the rest of eternity, we better stop making that our battle cry. And if you think any differently, you're lying to yourself, however self-righteous it may sound in your own head. Tune in every Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern as I give you my hot takes and, of course, my final thoughts.
So how about this? The Denver Broncos, if they score 18 points a game, they would be 8-1. OutKick 360 rolls on.
Oh,
that is
and they
nuts.
brought in Russell Wilson to play quarterback. You'd
And
think over
Nathaniel
18
Hackett.
a game would be easy. Oh, Nathaniel Hackett.
It's rough, man. And that just goes to show how good their defense has been. Yeah, if they score exactly 18 points in every single game this season, they would be 8-1.
Brutal.
And yesterday they allowed just 17. They led 10-0 against the Titans, and then the Titans scored 17 unanswered, won 17-10. Shutout in the second half for the Titans defense that was depleted of Jeffrey Simmons, Bud Dupree, Christian Fulton, and others, and Titans offense that doesn't have a true number one or maybe a number two wide receiver in some cases. They found ways to score against a good Broncos defense. And Chad, this is a Broncos team that's going to have a new head coach next year. You could feel that coming based on just how bad the offense is and how difficult it is for them to manufacture points on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and yesterday was it's not really the formula for the Titans to win a game like that because Derrick Henry wasn't very good. But, I mean, those are the games the Titans win. The Broncos aren't winning those games, but yet because their offense is so atrocious, it's really the only way they can win is a low-scoring, grinded-out type affair.
The Titans,
but it was
by the way,
Titans on top yesterday.
Titans in wins this season, 17 points. They've scored 17 in Houston. So the last 2 wins, they've scored exactly 17 points each. 19 points, 21, and then twice they've scored 24. So it's kind of the same thing, but you're right. I mean, they're winning the tight, close games on the scoreboard in the fourth quarter. And in the second half, their offense came to life yesterday. We have not seen that from this team throughout the season. For more on that, you can check out the Tennessee Power Hour at OutKick.com. We will have the new episode up tomorrow evening, and you can download that daily at OutKick.com, weekly, I should say, every Tuesday. Again, OutKick.com for that. Just click on shows, scroll down. You'll see it there on the Titans. The Giants. There was a point where, going into this week, there was an emphasis on, the Giants will win. It's the Texans. Last year, that was literally what people said about the Giants. Oh, it's the Giants.
It's going to be an easy win.
And now it's a very interesting finish to the season. Not just because of their 7 wins and where they have decisions to make on Saquon Barkley, who going into this game against the Texans, it got out that they have said no more contract talks. I guess they had been talking for the last few months on extension. They've both mutual agreement, like, we're not going to talk contract anymore. So they've come to some point of no return, I guess. Not in a bad way, just we're not going to get anything done to the offseason. But they also have Daniel Jones, who they did not pick up the option on, and those 2 guys are the reason why they are where they are right now. Defense and you could, of course, Dayball, but the new regime. I guarantee you, there's no way they thought they would have this type of predicament. And things can work itself out with an injury, and maybe Daniel Jones plays well or doesn't in the postseason, whatever. There's time to figure it out. But there's no way that when you take over as GM Joe Shane and then you have Dayball, you're thinking, you know what? We're going to have a real big decision on our hands with the Giants at running back and quarterback. And they do. It's crazy. Saquon Barkley had 15 carries, and in that game against the Texans, they were not even midway through the second quarter.
I don't think it's that close in terms of what's the bigger jersey surprise, Giants or Jets. Giants are way more surprising to me.
Yeah.
I could have seen this coming with the Jets. I'm surprised by the Jets.
Yeah.
That they've been as good as they have been.
In their division, yeah.
But I could see a route to them being around playoff capability.
Same thing with the Giants.
Come December.
Yeah, you're right.
But with the Giants, I was not seeing that this year. I thought it was a mess that Brian Daboll was inheriting, and I thought they were a team that was going to be vying for a top 5 or 10 draft pick by this point in the season.
Real quick on the Saints and Steelers, and then we'll preview Monday Night Football. The Saints, watching them play this year, I think will make us appreciate the job that Sean Payton did last year even more when it's all said and done. Dude played 4 different quarterbacks last year, injury depleted, COVID issues. I think they were the last team that actually got guys put on the sideline because of COVID outbreaks last year, and they still end up making that push at the end of the season and being 8-8 and had no business being there. This team is nowhere close to that with Dennis Allen. That's the value. People are like, what makes Sean Payton so great? Look at what he did last year with virtually the same group.
And it also may be why Dennis Allen could be a one and done.
But it goes back to one of our first topics today. Some coaches are just really good coordinators, really good position coaches. Dennis Allen can coach defense. He's not a good head coach. And I don't think it took too much to figure that out, quite frankly. It's going nowhere. Barring a complete meltdown, you've got Baltimore, who's going to run away, I think, with the AFC North. We know the Eagles are 8-0, playing tonight on Monday Night Football. You can join us. OutKick.com/bet is where you can place your wager on this game. I'm taking the Eagles at home, coming off the bye, Chad. I know you think it's a close game. I am betting on the fact that it's more of the same. The Eagles have not trailed at all in the second half this season. That's because their second quarter has been so phenomenal. Give me the Eagles tonight over the Commanders.
I've got a same game parlay for you, Hutton. I'm going Commanders plus 10.5 It's a little bit hypocritical the way I'm betting here because what I'm saying and then what I'm also betting on.
Yep.
Commanders plus 10.5, but I have A.J. Brown with an anytime touchdown, and I have A.J. Brown going over 70.5 receiving yards. I also have Brian Robinson with an anytime touchdown. $5 gets you $80 if all of those hit.
I will say, I think the Eagles pull it out. They extend the score in the second half. The Washington defense held the Vikings last week to their second lowest point total of the season. They also, the Eagles, have allowed 570 rushing yards in their last 4 games combined. Beware of that. But I would fly with the Eagles tonight. Let's
if
go.
I win that bet, you'll never hear the end of it, by the way. Never.
I might as well play it too. Back at it tomorrow on OutKick 360.